everyone, Doc Allie here. Today we're going to be discussing my journey to IMG. So today's magic trick that Doc Allie will be performing is compressing my 5-year journey into a less than 10-minute video, because my goal right now is to not be going into too much detail about certain things. I'm going to be hitting all the major points on my journey and the major mistakes, so you guys have a generally good idea. But if there is something that you see I kind of brush over and you do want to know more about it, you can always leave a comment and I will make a separate video for that. So in order to tell this story fully, I'm going to have to go all the way back to 2017, my junior year in college. And during this time, there was a lot going on. I was actually trying to join a sorority. I was smart with my hours, however, and I think that's how I survived that semester, is I didn't have too many hours, but I was focusing on the harder courses like physics and organic chem. So I had that going on, and then on top of that, junior year was when I designated my MCAT study time. So foolishly, I was trying to join a sorority, take care of classes, and study for the MCAT all at the same time. Obviously this didn't work out. You should have like a time where you can literally only study for MCAT. And so that's one of the major mistakes I want y'all to take note of. Do not try to do too much when it's time for MCAT. Like if you need to take the summer, take the summer. If this delays you a little bit, because I noticed that a lot of us are in a rush. We want to hurry up, we want to become doctors. Don't be in a rush that costs you. So my MCAT scores did not come back as we would have hoped. I mean, obviously I wasn't properly preparing for it, so that wasn't really a shock to me. To be very honest, another mistake that I made, and I hate to have to say this, please do not kill me for it, but was listening to my parents, because neither of them, sorry to say, are doctors. Neither of them have gone on this journey. And so when it was time for me to take my MCAT, my parents were like, yeah, go take it. And I was like, I'm really not ready. And they're like, too bad, we're gonna pay for it, you're gonna go take it, you're gonna do your best, that's it. And as I was saying, it's not a good idea to go take the MCAT when you're not ready. So my application cycle did not go as planned. I ended up not getting accepted into a single American medical school. And at that point, I actually learned of a student who was in my little cohort. So in undergrad, we had this medical academy that helped prep us for med school. And she was telling me she was going to the Caribbean. And that was like the first time that Caribbean medical school even came to my attention, because I wasn't thinking about them. So she was telling me she was going to a certain Caribbean medical school, and if I don't want to wait around for another application cycle and all the other stuff, she was like, just come. So I was like, okay. Another thing to take away from this is I also have a line sister who did not even apply to a single American medical school. She went directly to a Caribbean medical school. And I would say that this is a smart move if you know that you're probably not a competitive applicant and you don't want to spend the money, because each application cycle I went through was at least $200 to $300 on applications, because you're trying to send it off to whichever medical school will take the chance of accepting you, and you're spending lots of money in that process. Versus, I think Caribbean medical schools, some of their applications are free, some of them are as low as like $25. So that was her wise choice. I was so excited to finally have gotten an acceptance that all common sense just kind of flew out of the window. My friend was smart enough to go visit the island, and she even warned me about the island. She told me, you know, it's not America. There's gonna be a lot of things that they don't have, you know. We're used to the movie theaters, we're used to the malls, we're used to like bowling alleys, like stuff like that, and that kind of stuff was not on this island. This island was very, very simple living. And I was like, okay, I mean, I could deal with that. Like, I've moved over 10 times in my life. I figured that I could handle any type of move and adjustment, and that was my major mistake right there. If you're going to a Caribbean medical school, you need to go visit that island, see what it's like. At least have someone who you can trust. go visit for you tell you what it's about, what it's like, so that way you have a good idea. Because your environment has a major impact on your learning abilities, and people don't discuss this. People think, like I thought, that I could just tread through it, I'll get through it, I just want to go to medical school, I just want to get this done. And it's not that simple, because if your environment is having a negative impact on your mental health, that's going to be having a negative impact on your scores and your outcomes. So we get to the island, we start medical school, we're so excited, white coat ceremony, come on, let's go. I figured that I knew how to study for medical school. You know, I went to college, man. Like, I was a biology major. I thought I could just do what I did in college and bring that over to medical school. And that's not it at all. You need to study smart. So I will go into this in more detail, but as I was saying, me passively going through the slides as I saw my professors doing, you know, I thought that that was smart. It wasn't helping me to think critically. So when it came towards the end of the semester, when I started seeing my scores start to go up, it was because I was looking at each slide critically, and I was like, what could my teacher ask me from this slide? And I actually would write questions on the slide, so when my brain went to the slide, it had to actively think. It wasn't just passive. So not knowing how to study for medical school affected me greatly, because it took me until maybe near the end of the semester to figure it out. And so if you're having like really bad scores near the beginning, and then you finally starting to get 70s and 80s near the end, it's a little too late. So the scores started to affect my mental health. My environment started to affect my mental health. I'm grateful that I had a good support system there. They were there for me emotionally, but they couldn't really be there for me in the tutoring, educational way, because they themselves were trying to figure it out for themselves. This was that I wasn't taking care of myself. I tried to work out, I tried to incorporate that into my schedule, but like consumption wise, I was pretty terrible at that. I was drinking coffee and Red Bull, and that was having an effect on me. Near the end of the semester, I believe the last 2 weeks, I had a migraine every day. So my dad was starting to notice my mental decline, and he told me, I'd rather a daughter than a doctor. So if you need to come home, come home. And you cannot imagine how grateful I was to hear that, because I really did not want to be there anymore, and I did not know if I could healthily survive another semester there. So everything ended up working out, but in that moment I didn't see it. I ended up missing histo by 0.5 and anatomy by 2%. So that was extremely devastating for someone who was an honor student in high school and college, and then to get to medical school and not be able to even pull out a C. Like, it was really devastating. But like I said, it ended up all working out, because even though I appealed by pressure of my mother, I was more than grateful to God that they denied my appeal, because I was not ready and I did not have all the tools to turn everything around. So I ended up back in the US for a little bit over a year, because my original goal was to reapply to American medical schools. I started off by starting to study again for the MCAT. I retook that, and then because of the year application cycle, I tried to fill that time by doing things that would build my resume, such as shadowing, scribing, and I started a master's program. I won't say that anything that I did was a waste. I ended up not getting accepted into any American medical schools, but because this was my dream and my passion, I couldn't let it go. So I ended up reapplying to the Caribbean. And this time, when I found my current school, I spoke to the admissions lady thoroughly. I asked her about the education system, how testing worked. I asked her about class schedules. I even asked her about the island, because I was going to make sure I never made that mistake again. And what she helped me to understand was I basically went through a culture shock when I went to that island. And that's not to say anybody who goes to a Caribbean island, that's very simple. is going to have issues. Like, I've had classmates and friends who ended up being successful at that school on that island, but as for me, it wasn't good for me. It's all that it was. But this new island, she said it was very modern. I wouldn't have any issues adjusting to it. And so that is how I ended up at my current school. So if you are a non-traditional student, if you keep receiving rejections from schools, if you messed up your first go around in medical school, if you didn't know what to do in college to build a strong application, I'm talking to you. This is for you. This is not the end, okay? If this is your dream, this is your passion, do not settle, do not give up on it. It's okay to start over. It's not okay to give up, okay? And so I will be starting the next video about how I went from C's and D's at my first school to A's and B's at my second school, an in-depth compare contrast, and I will also be having videos about how I studied for each individual course in basic sciences. So I'm looking forward to helping you guys achieve your dreams. Give me a like, thumbs up, and subscribe so that you guys can keep on with me in this journey.